Hi everyone, my name is Jeff. I'm a compulsive eater. Like all of you, I weigh and measure my food 3 times a day. Turn it over to my handsome sponsor and don't eat in between meals, but I do eat my meals no matter what. Um, I March 7th was my start date here after being out of Gray Sheet for many, many years. Um, I came in at 437 pounds, uh, barely able to get out of bed, pretty bad shape. Um, I'm 66 years old now. I retired 2.5 years ago. Between that and the pandemic, it took its toll on me. Um, However, I go back to New York in 1980. That's when I started what was OA, and they had the Gray Sheet food plan back then. They had four different food plans. I was 25 years old. I did it, and I was successful with it. And once I got down to where I wanted to be, like anything else, you get a little cocky, a little attitude. You're young, you don't think you need this, and I left. And over the years, back and forth, back and forth. When my daughter was born, I lost some weight again in '82, but in a short time, I started climbing back up again. In 1990, I transferred my job down to Florida, thinking, well, that'll be better. I'll have a fresh start down there, and actually found some OA meetings. For understood, there was nothing, they had nothing to do with GreySheet anymore, so I didn't know what was going on with that. And I was successful from time to time, but it never really took, in and out, and the weight slowly kept coming on. And I was like, not only was I miserable with the weight, I was hot and miserable. And I went to another group, FAA, and I did that for about 9 months. I was very successful with that. But then again, and I knew this in my head, the grains were a detriment to me, even though it allowed it. And I noticed I was increasing my grain intake and increasing it and increasing it. And you can't give grains to a food addict. You can't give that. And eventually I went off of it. I remember the minute I went off of it, because I was out in California at a convention, and I went out to a restaurant, and I said, you know what? I was 185 pounds, and I picked up this breaded thing, and I took my first bite. And that was probably around 2002, 2003. And after that, everything went to hell. By 2007, I had shot up to 455 pounds. I was still working. But I was younger. I was able to move around. I still did things. And I opted to have a lap band. Well, I still have it. It works. It's in me. It's still doing its thing. But we all see how well it actually worked. Because, I lost maybe 50, 60 pounds. And then I discovered certain foods that we're not supposed to eat will slide through it. If I ate the foods I should have, it would work. But now I have a bag of the crunchies or something else. They went through it like it was nothing. And the weight came back on. And I tried to make it work with the lap band, in between OA meetings and stuff like that. They never worked for me. I needed a food plan. I mean, we all go to one of these things for a food plan, for something that you could work. And I went in there, it's like, yeah, we'll do the steps, but I'm not trying to knock them because it works for people too. But for me, I needed a structure. I needed something to follow. And I ended up having a sponsor for a little while. It didn't work out. We just didn't see eye to eye. with stuff, and I just gave up with that. In 2012, I had my first knee replacement surgery. And about 2 years later, I knew I needed a second one on my other knee, but I still waited. I managed to, I drove a truck. I managed to get off the road, and I got a position in my office as a supervisor, so which helped me with my knees. But now I'm sitting behind a desk and I'm not doing anything, and the weight kept coming on and on. So 2016, I finally had the second knee replaced, but my weight did a pretty much number on my knee. So it was a longer recovery on it. I had other things torn in there too, besides just the knee. And that took a while to recover from. In 2019, I retired. I went into Weight Watchers. I was actually doing fairly well on that. I went in there at 425, and I got down to about 390. And, but they give you points. And that is a whole bunch of carryover points. That's like giving a bunch of quarters to a gambler and telling him, well, go sit at the slot machine, but don't use it. I used it. We had went out, went to my favorite restaurant. I'm good. I'm within my points. And you have rollover points, and well, that might work for an average person. When you're a food addict, it doesn't work. And the 2 days went to 3 days, went to 4 days. And just reset, you'll be okay. And it was such a, and I always knew in the back of my head that any kind of carb was bad for me. I wasn't a big cake person. I'm sorry about that, but I wasn't a big, sweet person. But I was big with the carbohydrates, with the Italian food, with the stuff like that. The starches. And when the pandemic hit, it got really bad for me. Some people adapted to it. Some people, did things. I ate. I tried going to some shows, which I used to, like to do, and I couldn't even fit into the seats anymore. It was like really embarrassing. My wife, she dealt with we're married 43 years, she put up with me when good and bad and good and bad and good and bad all these years with the weight stuff. And, I know my daughter suffered with it too, because I couldn't do a lot of things with her. I did as much as I could. We still went on trips and we still did things, but it wasn't the same. And with this, I think my last trip, I went up to the mountains in Tennessee, with some family. And this was last November. I was 425. And what I liked about this is my wife's side of the family. They accept me for who I was, and they would help me get stuff. They would, bring me things, and not, they weren't mean or nothing. Because I had relatives that, like, oh, you're a big guy, you're no good, you're embarrassing. You just that. They never made me feel that way. But I still noticed that they went out and did things. I couldn't do things with them. It was more contentious, sit in the car, And we got back, and we went through the holidays, and I ate, and beginning of December, I go to my sleep. I have a sleep apnea, and I go to Mayo Clinic over here in Jacksonville, and the sleep doctor referred me to the bariatric unit. They said they had people that could talk to me there, so I went. And what I quickly discovered, they trying to steer me towards getting a sleeve, take the band down and do a sleeve. And I really didn't want to do that. And I finally, after a few things, I finally agreed. Well, let me look at it. They set me up for tests. They gave me this big book to bring home, this big loose leaf binder. And I read this over the course of a couple of days.
Excuse me, that's 10 minutes.
Thank you.
5 left.
And I said, there's no way I'm going to do this. And I called them back. I said, this is crazy, because if I can't control how I eat, I could defeat a sleeve too. And I'd probably make that a goal of mine to do that. I saw what people have it, what was required of it and what you went through with it. I said, no, I had enough. I mean, the band was one thing. I always take it out and everything will be, all my plumbing is still there. So I kind of went into a kind of a bad funk for a while. And I wouldn't even get out of bed. I would very, very rarely, or I have a recliner downstairs that I was staying almost the whole day in, sometimes nights. I wouldn't get out of it. I found a psychologist that I'd seen a long time ago for some other issues of work. And, she agreed to see me, and we talked about it for a couple, and after about 2-3 sessions, I had the incentive to go out and look. I went online and I discovered GreySheet. I said, I don't believe this is around. And then the Zoom meetings and all, because I didn't care for Zoom. I was trying to stay away from the computer because I was spending too much time with it. I figured that was part of my problem, but I reached out to a couple of people there was a beginners meeting on Sundays. And I reached out to 2 of the people on the meeting, and they sent me the password, and I went to the meeting, and I felt immediately welcome. I felt them, and they were up in New York, and all the New Yorkers, and that's where I was from. So just hearing the voices, the accents, I felt really comfortable, and everyone made me feel great. And I understood there was some behind the scenes work to get me a sponsor, and I started talking to some guy, and we talked for a couple of days. And I was about to ask him, "Do you want to be my sponsor?" And I said to him, I says, "Are you sponsoring me?" He says, "Yeah, I guess so." And we're still going at it. I mean, the first few weeks were a little rough, getting through the sugar thing and knocking heads with the vegetables and some of the foods I'm supposed to have. Trying to, because we're still manipulators. We're still trying to manipulate the situation. I was trying to make, the best deal for myself, I guess. But the first few weeks I toughed it out, and my sponsor was really good, talking to me and getting things, and we were doing the outreach calls and stuff, and I started doing a meeting a day for 90 days, and which would have been impossible because I'm in an outpost. There's no meetings here. I think the next closest meeting, if they had a face-to-face, was probably 6 hours away. And it started going good. I had rough nights. My roughest time is at night. It still is sometimes, because I used to come home from work at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, and 2 in the morning I'm eating God knows how much food I eat, and I go to bed sick. But since coming into program, the getting my clarity back, getting my thing, my ability to move. In a few weeks, I started being able to move around to do things. I stopped wearing clothes at size 58. I started wearing 6X jogging pants, and I just didn't go out of the house anymore. I got down to the 58s now. I'm down to wearing, I completely bypassed the 56s. I think I wore them one day. I still have clothes going back, I don't know how far back. I'm wearing my 54s now. I'm able to get up and do things. I go shopping now with my wife. Before I would sit in the car or not go at all. I'm doing landscaping in my yard, gardening and stuff, which I used to love to do, and I stopped. One of the biggest things I gave up after 45 years was riding my motorcycle. It sat in the garage for the last 2 years. I just eventually sold it. And I'm hopeful that one day maybe I can get back on that point. I'm down a substantial amount of weight now. And I'm just amazed. I mean, I'm still big numbers, but the things I can do now, I took for granted years ago.
That's time.
Because of this program. Thank you. I'll wrap it up. But like I said, I'm in there. September 7th will be 6 months. And I feel so good about this. I don't have a desire to go, even though I know I could pick up in a minute. I don't have a desire to go back to where I was, because I try to tell a lot of newcomers I talk to, the younger people, is that you don't want to be in your 60s or 70s and go through this. You're young, some use 30s, 40s, even 50s. You're still active. You still have your muscles are different. You recover better. I'm not recovering as better. I'm doing a lot better. I'm happy for where I am now, but your body doesn't recover as fast as it did years ago. So thank you for letting me share, and appreciate it. Thank you.